Today's lesson is about graphing working backwards. On this worksheet, you're given information about f prime and f double prime. You have to use this information to try to sketch a possible graph of f. So in these videos, I'll work out numbers 1, number 3, and number 5. And then we can leave the rest of the odd numbers for you to do for homework. So for homework, you'll just do number 7, number 9, and number 11. Number 1, given the following sign charts with information about f prime and f double prime, sketch a possible graph of f. So we have a number line for f prime. To the left of -3, f prime is positive. Between -3 and -1 is negative. Between -1 and 4, it's positive. And to the right of 4, it's negative. So let's think about what that information really means. If f prime is positive or negative, that tells us whenever f is increasing or decreasing. If f prime is equal to 0, that means that f has a horizontal tangent at that point. If the signs change around that 0, that means that f would have a min or a max. We also have a number line for f double prime. To the left of -2, f double prime is negative. Between -2 and 0, f double prime is positive. And then to the right of 0, f double prime is negative. The sign for f double prime tells us about concavity. If f double prime is positive, then it's concave. If f double prime is negative, then f is convex. Let's make a new number line to organize all this information. For every tick mark we have on the f prime and f double prime number lines, I'm going to create a tick mark for those values on this new number line. On either number line above, the furthest to the left value we have is -3. So I'll create a tick mark for -3. Next, after that is -2, so I'll create a tick mark for -2. Then we have a -1, make a tick mark for -1. After that, it's 0. And then the furthest to the right is 4. I'm going to use some abbreviations for writing information above the new number line. Whenever the graph of f is increasing, I'll write an I. Whenever it's decreasing, I'll write D. For concave up, I'll write CU. And then for concave down, I'll write CD. To the left and right of each tick mark on our new number line, I want to write whether it's increasing or decreasing, and then concave up or concave down. Let's look through all the f prime signs and write that information down first. F prime says that to the left of -3, f prime is positive. That means it's increasing. So on my new number line, to the left of -3, I'll write an I for increasing. The f prime number line shows that it is negative between -3 and -1. That means it's decreasing. So on my number line between -3 and -1, I'll write a D in both of these zones, showing that it's decreasing between -3 and -1. Next, we have a plus sign between -1 and 4. So I'll write an I for increasing between -1 and for 4. After 4, there's a negative sign. That means it's decreasing after 4. So now let's look at the f double prime number line. To the left of -2, there's a minus sign, which means it's concave down. So to the left of -2, put CD for both of those zones. Between -2 and 0, f double prime is positive. Positive means it's concave up, so I'll write CU for both of the zones between -2 and 0. Finally, f double prime is negative to the right of 0, so I'll write CD for concave down. Let's think about what these segments on the graph would look like. If the graph is increasing and concave down, that segment might look like this. So the graph is getting higher while the concavity is going downwards. Between -3 and -2, it's decreasing and it's concave down. That might look like this. It's decreasing and it's concave down. Next, it should be concave up and decreasing. And then it's increasing and concave up. Next, it's increasing and concave down. And finally, it's decreasing and concave down. We also need to consider if there are any relative maxes or mins in this. Are there any cusps or corners? What about a vertical asymptote? The only thing we can gather from the f prime is that we would have a horizontal asymptote at -3, at -1, and 4. That's because f prime was 0 for all those values. At -3, it's increasing to the left and decreasing to the right. That means we'll have a relative max at -3. At -1, it's decreasing to the left and increasing to the right. We would have a relative minimum at x equals -1. And then at 4, it's increasing and then decreasing. That means we'd have a relative max at 4. So we can add that information to our number line. Now we want to use the information we gathered on the new number line to draw a possible graph for f. If we're working backwards from f prime and f double prime to f, we lose the information about how high the graph would be. Since we don't know how high or how low these values will be, I won't even draw any tick marks on the y-axis. So the maximum y value at -3, I'll just plot that here. We then have a minimum at x equals -1. I'll put that here. And then there's a max at x is equal to 4. I'll put that right here. Now we only need to worry about concavity. From -3 to -2 is concave down, and then from -2 to -1 is concave up. So we would have a point of inflection at -2. As I draw this graph, I want to show that it's concave down from -3 to -2, and then after -2, it's going to be concave up. From -1 to 0 is concave up, and then from 0 to 4 is concave down. -1 to 0, concave up, and then 0 to 4 is concave down. After 4, it's concave down and decreasing. And to the left of -3, it's increasing and concave down. And that is a possible graph of f.